Someone said something to you recently. Maybe it was rude. Maybe it was passive-aggressive. Maybe it was the kind of comment that sounds almost like a compliment, but lands like a needle. And in that moment, your mind went blank. Or worse, you said something back that you immediately regretted, and for the rest of the day, you were somewhere else, replaying it, thinking of everything you should have said. The perfect response that arrived 3 hours too late. In the shower, in the car, somewhere private, where it was completely useless. That feeling has a name. The French call it l'esprit de l'escalier, the spirit of the staircase, the comeback that comes to you on the way out the door. And almost everyone who has ever been in a difficult conversation has felt it. Here is what changes today. Not by giving you clever comebacks, not by teaching you how to win arguments, but by giving you 7 responses rooted in 2,000 years of Stoic wisdom that do something far more powerful than winning. They end the dynamic entirely. They take away the other person's ability to continue. They communicate without aggression, without anger, without any of the drama that most responses create. That you are operating from a completely different level, and that level is one they simply cannot reach you at. Before the 7 responses, I need to say something important. The goal is not to silence people for the sake of it. The goal is not to make people feel small. The goal is to protect your peace, to handle difficult people, difficult conversations, difficult moments, in a way that leaves you feeling clear, not drained, empowered, not ashamed. The Stoics understood something most people still miss. The person who stays calm always holds the most power in the room. Not the loudest person, not the most aggressive, the calmest. Because calm communicates something that anger never can. I am not threatened by you. What you just said did not reach the place you aimed it. And a person whose words did not land has nothing left to say. These 7 responses create that dynamic every single time. Smart response 1. That is interesting. 3 words, completely neutral, slightly curious, and devastatingly effective. Here is why. When someone says something designed to provoke you, to make you defensive, to get a reaction, they are expecting one of 2 things. Either you push back or you shrink. Both of those give them what they came for. But that is interesting, gives them nothing. It is not agreement. It is not disagreement. It is observation, the specific tone of someone who finds the comment noteworthy, in the way you might note an interesting cloud formation, without feeling any particular need to respond further. And the absence of the expected reaction creates a silence they do not know how to fill, because they came for a fight or for submission, and received neither. Epictetus said, "It is not he who gives abuse who affronts, but the view we take of it as insulting." That is interesting, is the spoken version of choosing not to take it as insulting. Use it the next time someone says something sharp, or provocative, or designed to get under your skin. Say it slowly, with genuine curiosity in your tone, and then say nothing else. Let the silence work. Smart response 2. You might be right. This one sounds like giving in. It is not. It is one of the most psychologically sophisticated responses available. Here is what it does. It removes the battlefield. When you agree, or partially agree, or even acknowledge the possibility that the other person has a point, you remove the thing they were pushing against, the resistance, the argument they came to have. And without the resistance, the push has nowhere to go. They were ready for a wall. You gave them open air. And people who push against open air usually fall forward. Now notice what you are not saying. You are not saying, "You are right." You are saying, "You might be." That is not concession. That is intellectual honesty. The acknowledgement that another perspective has some possibility of validity, which is almost always true. Even in the most difficult conversations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. That is not weakness." And That is the specific strength of someone who does not need to be right, more than they need to be honest. Use this when someone is trying to force their opinion on you, when someone is pushing hard for a reaction, when the argument is becoming circular and draining. You might be right and then change the subject, or simply stop talking. Smart response 3. I hear you. Simple, human, and almost impossible to argue against. Because here is what most difficult conversations are actually about. Not the surface topic, the feeling underneath the surface topic, the feeling of not being heard, of not mattering, of having a perspective that the other person is dismissing. And when you say, I hear you, genuinely, not as a technique, but as a real acknowledgement that this person has a perspective, that perspective has been received. Something shifts, the heat reduces. Not because you agreed, because you acknowledged. And acknowledgement, real acknowledgement, is what most people in difficult conversations are actually looking for. Now, here is the Stoic part. Saying I hear you does not mean I agree with you, does not mean you are right, does not mean I will change my position. It means I received what you said, and after receiving it, you can decide what to do with it, which might be nothing, which might be I hear you, pause, and then complete silence, which communicates I heard you, and I have nothing further to add. That silence after the acknowledgement is one of the most dignified and most powerful closes to a difficult conversation available. Smart response 4. I will think about that. This response does something extraordinary. It removes the urgency. And urgency, in most difficult conversations, is what the other person is counting on. They want an immediate response, an immediate reaction, something to engage with right now. Because if you respond immediately, they can continue, they can counter, they can push further. But I will think about that takes the immediate response off the table. It says, I am not reacting to this in real time. I am taking it away. I am giving it the consideration it may or may not deserve. And I will come back to it when I am ready, on my timeline, not yours. That removal of urgency, that refusal to engage on the other person's schedule, is one of the most powerful dynamics you can create in any difficult conversation. Epictetus said, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Deciding when to respond is completely in your power. You. I will think about that, said once firmly, without apology, and then say nothing further in that moment. Smart response 5. I appreciate you sharing that. This one disarms completely, because it is so unexpected. Someone says something difficult, something critical, something that was designed to sting, and you respond with appreciation, not sarcasm, not performed politeness, genuine. I appreciate you sharing that. And the person who was expecting defensiveness, or attack, or the stumbling justification of someone who was hurt, gets none of those things. They get appreciation, and appreciation, in response to something that was designed to wound, communicates something profound, that it did not wound, and that you are secure enough to receive what they offered without needing to return it differently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Unlike means not returning heat with heat, not returning sharpness with sharpness. Unlike, different, from a different place entirely. I appreciate you sharing that. Is from a different place, and the person who receives it knows immediately that they did not reach what they were aiming for. Smart response 6. Say nothing. Hold eye contact. Nod slowly. This is not a verbal response. It is more powerful than any verbal response. Because here is what happens when someone says something difficult, and you respond with nothing. Not silence born of having nothing to say, but silence born of choosing not to say, while maintaining completely calm eye contact and nodding slowly, as if what they said was the most ordinary thing in the world. They become uncomfortable immediately, not you. Them, because the discomfort of unacknowledged provocation lies in the person who provoked. not in the person who chose not to react. The silence returns the discomfort to its origin, and people who receive back what they sent usually stop sending it. Seneca wrote, "Silence is a lesson learned from the many sufferings of life." The person who has learned to be comfortable in difficult silence is the most powerful person in any difficult conversation, because they are not trying to end the discomfort by speaking. They are comfortable in it, and the person who is comfortable, while the other person is not, has won, without saying a single word. Smart response 7. Thank you for that perspective. This is the most complete response available, because it does three things simultaneously. It acknowledges, it thanks, and it frames what the other person said as a perspective, rather than a truth. A perspective, their view, one of many possible views, not reality, not a verdict about you, a perspective. And thanking someone for their perspective, while implicitly declining to adopt it, is one of the most elegant and most powerful moves in any difficult social dynamic. It says, I received what you offered. I acknowledge that you offered it, and I am filing it as one perspective among many, rather than the authoritative verdict you may have intended it to be. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. Thank you for that perspective," is the spoken version of that principle. You offered an opinion. I am not required to have one in return. Thank you for sharing yours. Use this when someone gives unsolicited criticism, when someone makes a judgment about your choices, when someone offers a perspective that you did not ask for and do not require. Thank you for that perspective, warmly, firmly, finally. So here are the 7 responses. That is interesting. You might be right, I hear you. I will think about that. I appreciate you sharing that. Say nothing, hold eye contact, nod slowly, thank you for that perspective. 7 responses, all of them calm, none of them aggressive, none of them clever in the way that creates escalation, all of them powerful in the way that ends it. And here is the most important thing about all of them. They only work if they are genuine, if you use them as techniques, as performances of calm. While internally you are reacting, people will feel the performance. The technique will not land the same way. But if you use them from a genuine place, from the actual settled certainty of someone who has decided that what was just said does not have authority over their piece, they become something different from techniques. They become expressions of who you are, of what you have built inside yourself, of the specific freedom of someone who, as Epictetus put it, does not depend on the admiration of others, does not require the conversation to go a certain way, does not need to win, just to remain themselves clearly, calmly, in every difficult moment, without exception. Marcus Aurelius wrote something I want to leave you with. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The difficult people, the sharp comments, the provocations, are not obstacles to your peace. They are the practice of it. Every difficult conversation you navigate with these 7 responses builds something. Not just a skill, a way of being, a version of yourself that does not need to fight, because it is settled enough to simply be. And that version is available right now, in whatever difficult conversation is waiting for you today. If this gave you something real, share it with one person who struggles with difficult people and needs a better way to handle them. Subscribe for new Stoic wisdom every single week.